program called the Zer01ne Accelerator. So for this year, we've also sent out an announcement about this. So this is the first half, for the first half open call. So tell us a little bit more about the accelerator, and how many times do you guys do this a year?
We do this twice a year. As kind of implied, the first half open call. So you can imagine we have a second half open call for quarters 3 and 4 of this year. But basically, what the Zer01ne Accelerator is, it's something that was developed at our headquarters about 4 years ago. And so for the past 3 years, they've actually opened up the open call to startups all across the world. Originally, this was only for Korea. But they had a lot of success in building the program in Korea that they wanted to expand it to across the world as well. The idea is that the Zer01ne team, they gather together various internal teams within Hyundai. This could be teams within Hyundai's R&D, engineering, marketing, and strategy, even affiliate companies like Glovis and Mobis. They have like dozens of various internal teams that are looking to collaborate with startup companies, and for them they have kind of pretty specific requirements, which if you look on the open call page, you can see all the various topics in which they're looking for. Granted, it's not going to tell you exactly who the internal team is, but just to know that for every single one of these topics and themes, there is an internal team behind that's looking to collaborate with startups on. And so for us, this platform is getting bigger and bigger, right? Every time we do this, we actually find more and more participants from internal Hyundai teams. And the idea of this is this basically is another way to build this bridge, build this pathway between a startup company and the interested internal team. And for this one, we look towards doing like an initial proof of concept, right? We don't want to do something overly complicated. We also don't want to do we also don't want to minimize anything, right? So for this one, we also generally keep a 50,000 budget, although because this accelerator is much bigger, the number of participants is much bigger. Sometimes depending on the internal interest, it might go higher than that, right? So the 50K is definitely not a hard 50K. There's room for negotiation because ultimately it depends on what the internal team is interested in, right? So just by way of example, if it's for example a battery R&D team that's internal, that's looking at a new kind of lithium ion battery, they may be interested in doing a project that's more around the 200K mark, because validating these battery technologies can get pretty expensive, and so they definitely would not restrict it to the 50K just for the sake of restricting it, right? Because ultimately they want to prove out how the technology works and if it could go into like a next generation Hyundai electric vehicle, right? So they may be interested in doing something a little bit more complicated, right? More complicated than the 50K. But again, this ultimately depends on the team that's behind the topic and the theme.
Okay, so it looks like going through the technical areas, as you said, compared to Open Innovation Lounge, this is much broader.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're looking at materials, not only because you're looking for more startups here. I think you're looking for around more than 30 projects, but you're also looking at smart construction, logistics, mobility service, charging, in-car user experience, as well as auto tech. And I actually found at the bottom here, there's a suggest a new project thing.
There is, yeah.
When you say suggest a new project, this is basically the same, under the same the same tenor as in Open Innovation Lounge, where if you find something but it doesn't fit here, but you have something, then
Yeah.
you could, you could also submit. For the startup submitting in, in Zer01ne Accelerator compared to Open Innovation Lounge, do you find that they're usually at the same stage or similar stages, or are some of these startups in
Usually,
the accelerator a
usually at
little
the same
earlier?
stage. Yeah,
Okay.
usually at the same stage, and that is because of the whole needing the strategic alignment, right? And so
Hmm.
the teams that's behind each of these topics, right? They want to be able to hold something in their hands, or
Hmm.
it could be literal, or it could be figurative, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But definitely not a PowerPoint presentation or a bunch of patents, right? That's much more difficult to hold in your hands,
Hmm. Hmm.
figuratively and literally. And so generally we're looking for later stage startup companies that have a prototype, have the ability to build a prototype with us,
Hmm.
build a proof of concept with us to validate the technology, basically.
Hmm. So the deadline for this is March 7th. So the application is now open, and you're looking for 38 projects. And I think you did mention that there, this involves like the wider team of Hyundai. So from R&D,
Yes.
for product, for for other areas. But this also covers, the other companies under Hyundai Motor Group. So Kia, Genesis, plus the um, plus Mobius
Globus,
and
Mopus, and
yeah, and
yeah,
Globus, yeah. So just
yes.
so everyone knows, like there's a timeline here. So the submission is March 7. There is an application review as well as an interview, and then final selections. So once you've gone through the process, like for the interview and the application, like do you end up being reviewed or evaluated
Yeah.
or interviewed by a certain by that group, or is it like a mixture of everyone in Hyundai within the evaluation panel?
The main evaluation is done by the group that's sponsoring that particular project, or the topic. They will conduct the interview to identify if there is this strategic fit, and if there is, they will likely make the final selection for 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 the company. And then once the selection is made, then we move forward on doing this proof of concept, right? And
Mhm.
generally with the timelines and everything, because this open call is for first half of 2022, we will likely do the POC or do the demo. We'll likely do the project, do the POC second half of 2022. And
Mhm.
similarly, once we get to the second half, it'll, any selections will probably be actual project's going to be done first half of
Mhm.
2023, for example.
Mhm.
Right? And so it's just the way just the way timing works, right? And the
Mhm.
length of project depends on the project itself, right? How in depth
Mhm.
it needs to be, right? It could be just a couple of months, or maybe it could last a year or 2 years even. Right? So
Mhm.
it really just depends.
Yeah. And for startups that submit here, and this is just like a question that's been hanging over my head. Um, is it possible, like if you find a company here that you think is, would fit Open Innovation Lounge, do you guys kind of talk to each other and say, hey, you know what, there's something here that we think would be a better fit for the other thing, for the other event? You could
Yes,
probably just. Mhm.
yes, we do. We do. I did, like, 'cause that that I guess would be part of the application review process. We'll look at all
Mhm.
the app like sometimes, like, we've seen startups that they submit into one project, but they actually fit a little better into another one. So we
Mhm.
so we do some rerouting, and sometimes we even submit it to both projects, right?
Yeah.
That's also a possibility, depending on,
Mhm.
but it depends on the case. Usually, I mean, these topics are pretty broad, but they're also fairly specific as well. So
Mhm.
generally, if you fit into one, the odds are you don't really fit into another project anyways.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, this all happens during our application review process. And then once the internal team select you for interview, then they would do the in-depth evaluation on whether or not they think to determine whether or not they want to do the POC, do the project with you.